This is our 60.
Driveline R&D podcast, episode 68. This is Caravan, director of data science.
So hard.
What's up?
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. Eat your teeth, baby.
Last time that happened on the podcast, I almost took my eye out.
That just peaked so hard.
Kyle Lindley, Pulse product manager. I don't know what's going on with my headphones again, man.
Yeah, hopefully you're good.
Drinking a Fremont Milo. It's a frequent flyer of the R&D podcast, it seems. So
Yeah, Fremont's always in.
Cheers.
Anthony Brady, director of sports science, primary host, Driveline R&D Research and Drinks podcast. Haven't had any production flaws recently, so we're on a good streak. Episode 68, and we have a guest today.
Our
Introduce yourself.
first in-person
Live.
non-Driveline guest.
Live in studio guest.
Yeah.
the studio.
We
That's
just finished.
what's our clever name going to be for the studio now that we have a launch pad for the lab?
Yeah, I
We'll have
don't
to think of
know.
one.
Launchpad Studios.
The degenerate pit.
Yeah.
The D-Gen pit. Oh, shoot. Yo, you want to go actually close that door? Make sure it's shut.
But anyway,
Yeah. So guest episode 2 with Eno. We just finished Ochart's second episode. So
Nice.
second one with you. You're the
What's your
Second-
number overall?
This is 68.
guest
Who should we
episode's
have
probably
on?
half.
Who should we
Or
have
no,
on
less,
for
probably.
Let's make
69?
it 69.
Yeah. 69.
Honorary
That
69.
one.
That's a good point, honestly. If we have a lame episode, 69, let's switch them for sure. Switch them.
Save it up.
on the YouTube thumbnail, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We record it. Fire. Yeah. So, you just got in. You got in last night.
Mhm.
You're just hanging out at the facility.
My first time back. I can't actually put a finger on what year it was. I think it was 12 or 13. I don't know exactly when. I know that you weren't in the first facility, but you were in the second one, which fits into where the gym is now.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, it was pretty small, and everyone was fighting about getting gym time.
Yeah.
They were mad about that. I remember Casey Weathers was still trying to pitch in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Was coming back, I think, from a surgery, and Bauer had a drone, and he was flying the drone around.
That sounds right.
And you guys had like 3 Edgertronics, and weighted balls and a little tiny gym. And today I've been really impressed. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's way different. Did you see the previous facility, the last one?
That's what I'm talking about. I saw. I think the last one, not the smallest one. Apparently there was one called an attic or something.
Yeah. I was like
I
on the
never-
second floor.
I don't think I saw that one. No, I wasn't on the second floor. So I saw the last one, and this one is amazing comparatively. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just doing some mocap with Lars Nutbar, and that's tricked out.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
some nice toys.
That's one of the
there.
best part about it is like having our own dedicated lab now
Mhm.
that we can just go out there whenever we need to. Because at the old facility, the lab was only a lab from like 7 a.m. to like 11 or noon. And right at noon is when it turned into like a pitch
Training,
design
yeah.
lab for like all the pitch design.
Where the people
bullpens.
showed up to
Yeah.
train.
Yeah. So like pitch designs are coming in, the lab shut down. That happened for a few hours. And then it was like youth athletes working out in the lab from, 5 to 8. And then hitters would hit in the lab cage from like, 8 until midnight. So,
Everybody's still on their computers.
Yeah.
like it's,
yeah,
it's
we're
still
like,
lab.
we're working in the background and
Uh-huh.
we're cheering ping, ping.
Yeah.
right by our desk. But now, it's just completely dedicated.
Now you have a
lab.
whole studio room
Oh,
for
yeah.
just
That's right.
podcasting.
Exactly.
And that's a super recent development. This is like 2 weeks or like
Yeah.
3 weeks that we've had
It's
this.
all put together in the last little bit. So,
Well, I also heard that you guys were like physically building this lab back here to the point where you're up on ladders and
yeah.
yeah.
risking life and limb.
Yeah.
We still have one over there because we still
Yeah.
have to use it for some stuff. But yeah.
Still risking life and
It
limb.
actually, it was probably honestly like the slowest lab build out of a biomechanics lab because of the amount of time it took. And
The first
we
place.
opened, like athletes were still training. So we were trying to build it while athletes are using it. So we would have stuff up on tripods in the interim. And then we'd also be trying to like, put new turf in, build the truss, cable everything. We would like try to cable as much as we could. And then we'd have to get the lab ready for like the next day of captures and stuff. It it was all over the place.
Now it seems like a well-oiled machine. I was hitting off the eye pitch with Lars Nutbar over, you've got sort of 3 or 4 hitting setups.
Yeah.
We got 3 or 4 pitching setups, and I guess you're gonna make a little bit more out here.
Replacing the warehouse area.
Warehouse space with some more batting
appreciate
cages and pitching.
You do mocap tomorrow?
Well, we'll see. Well, I guess I get naked and put some balls on. Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's
It's
go.
a very,
Yeah, I hit today off the eye pitch too, and it was bad. I topped out at about I think my top exit velocity was 72.
Not bad.
How many swings?
I think you beat Caravan
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
Off eye pitch or in
Yeah.
general?
Oh,
Off
I mean-
off the tee, bro. I'm stroking 80.
Yeah.
I'm stroking 80. We can do a live podcast recording. Go over there. I thought you.
Have you ever hit off the eye pitch?
No, that's what I'm saying.
I was gonna say,
off the eye pitch.
Oh, it was awful.
They're
Off the eye pitch. I'm hitting the netting. On
Yeah,
the
you
side.
probably-
One thing that
don't
was
hit
nice was that he did not put it on random, so I did not have
Oh
to
my
force. I didn't have to like face
Oh,
98,
God.
and it was a 80-mile-an-hour lefty slider over and over again.
Yeah.
I had plenty of run up. I had the platoon advantage.
Right.
I everything was set up for me to succeed. And I probably made contact about 6 times. But I think 3 or 4 of them were off the handle for some reason. And Staropoulos was telling me that my bat path is horrible. And he said, but we can't fix that today. So all I want you to do is think about getting that contact point out in front of the plate.
There we go.
And I think it was a pretty good cue, after that I made my best contact. Although in the video it looks pretty bad. I have minus bat
That's tough.
speed. So
That's tough.
Pretty
Yeah.
impressive. I remember walking out there. Chris Langham was trying to hit off. I think it was at 92 on our either
Oh,
slider
yeah.
or 2-seam or something.
Yeah, like cranked it up all the way.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but he was making some bet about how he could make contact within like 10 pitches or something. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
dude, no shot.
no, I wouldn't have made any bet like that. I was happy to have made the contact I made.
Yeah.
Did you have blast on? Did you get a bat speed reading?
I did not have blast on. I got the exit velocity readings off the
Yeah,
hit
the
tracks.
tracks,
Yeah,
Mhm.
I did not have blast on.
Nice.
Nice. And you're up here for a story.
Yeah, I'm working on a few stories. One story that I'm working on is a piece with Alec Lewis about the future of biomechanics, sort of the present and future of biomechanics. So it was kind of cool. John Staropoulos, showed me what he uses. Soteropoulos, sorry.
Soteropoulos,
Soteropoulos.
I was down to not correct you, honestly.
Right.
Yeah, I love
But-
roasting solder on random shit. So it's like, dude, he doesn't know your name, dog. Don't freaking like wrong with him.
But he showed me kind of how he would use the mocap and the KVAS data to coach Lars, and sort of it was interesting because I work where I'm trying to find mottos and top line takeaways that I can boil down
Yep.
for the
Right.
audience, But seemingly his interaction with biomechanics is still in maybe a kind of a feeling out phase where it's like kind of unique to each hitter and
Yep.
unique to each pitcher in some ways. And so I think maybe I would say that hitting biomechanics is a little bit behind pitching biomechanics, and it's maybe primed for a little bit of a takeoff for the
100%.
next few years. And then the other thing that I have on pitching biomechanics is that I think we've been really focused on, velocity and health. And I think the last frontier for pitching biomechanics research is how biomechanics relate to outcomes.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
how basically you put it under a header of like deception, but like
Mhm.
deception is a big word. That there's lots of different kinds of
Yeah.
deception. There's hiding the ball. There's we were talking about this on my podcast, Rates and Barrels, but how Ian Anderson comes up with this crazy spine tilt
Yeah.
and this crazy over the top, and there's one deception that's like, okay, arm slot expected movement.
Mhm.
So the hitter sees the arm slot and expects from Ian Anderson everything to be up, down, like Smiley maybe.
Right.
Expects maybe like a righty Drew Smiley, right? Where everything's up and down, there's no wiggle. And so maybe like through seam shift away, through his grip or whatever, he has some wiggle on his changeup. But beyond that, Devin Mesoraco, a former Major League catcher, said, I can't even see the pronation that I might be able to see in his wrist and fingers from up there. Like his arm slot hides it, or his forearm hides it in some way. Yeah. Whereas if he's out here, I might be able to see him turn over that ball. Yeah. I just can't see it up there. So there's some research to be done. Maybe I'm sure y'all will do it about like sort of relating different arm angles. Like one of the keys is Stuff Plus, right? Because you have a metric for relating, the physical properties of the pitch to outcomes. Yeah. And then you have to look for outliers. Yeah. And then you start to look at the outliers and start to say, oh, well, we're finding something about, there's in these outliers, we're finding the crazy forearm layback, like, the kind of Usmera Petit thing.
100%.
Or
that's kind of what Langan talked about in an episode we did with him just a bit ago, where you mentioned like, trying to figure out those dark matter type movements or things that aren't accounted for in like Stuff Plus or other stuff, but you just have guys that outperform the models for whatever reason, and we can't quite figure it out yet. You do hear a lot of those catchphrase anecdotes from players that say like he
can't see it,
he hit the ball well, or it gets up on you, stuff like that. So maybe there's something going on.
Well, I was just going to say, like, even more broadly, you said the frontier of like the deception, like measuring deception in the biomechanics lab, even just the biomechanics of pitch design, because we've switched over from having people just come in and fire fastballs to now we have them, pitch through their whole arsenal. So we have like 20 to 30 pitches saved through a session, and a lot of that is like optimizing our biomechanics processing database, all that stuff to like be able to work through a bunch of those pitches. But we've been putting in a lot of time like on a more technical debt side of things. And I think
it's a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the ass. I think like this year, I think the summer is going to be a lot more analysis, research based, like findings versus like last summer where we were like building stuff, making sure we could just like passively data collect all the new technology. So
the same idea of like relating the biomechanics to the outcomes. We're like
100%.
I think we've been very grips focused in the past, where it's like one of the easiest cues to run through people through is a new grip, right? But there are thousands of
grips.
Does
that work for their arm slots?
Right. So maybe you could even boil down like these grips work for these arm slots, and
it's actually one thing. I was just on a panel earlier today for the ISBS Virtual Symposium, the International Society of Biomechanics, and Cam Castro was on the panel with us. We were going over like athlete case studies, and then there was an athletic trainer, Cam more on the coaching side. They would give like feedback, and we were talking about the biomechanics. And I did a case study on, it's probably fine to say here, is on Dylan Tate, and like his progression. We anonymized it for the thing, but so it was looking at like Dylan Tate's progression biomechanically from when his MLB debut, throwing 93, to 2020. His top fastball velo was 98.2 or something. Like it was like a pretty big increase. And obviously he trained with us and got assessed. And there were a lot of significant biomechanical differences in that 5 mile an hour jump between his mechanics. But one thing I talked about in the end was, we have him in a good spot biomechanically for velocity. Like the model is optimizing for health and efficiency and velocity production within like the way he moves. But what we don't know is how do these kinematic changes affect his arsenal and his ability. Like, yes, he saw a 5 mile an hour jump. Can he throw the same fastball, the same sinker, the same off speed pitches? Or because kinematically he's getting more scap retraction, he's getting more layback, whatever it is, now is it maybe harder to get like the same amount of sweep? So those are questions that I think, as you said, is like that next frontier of accounting for all the other performance metrics other than just velocity. But right now it's just like velo goes up, biomechanics good kind of thing, right?
But it's also, I think it's just really, it's come to the point now where it's infused a lot of processes in labs like this, so that at least you can kind of like which drills are effective better now because you have the mocap. You can kind of do the assessment before, have someone drill a certain drill for 2 months and then come back in. and say, did that drill actually affect his scap? Or did this drill do what we wanted to do? Like we have confirmation now the towel drill does nothing or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's like one of the other things that was even talked about on the grip side is because we have like an internal dashboard of all our grips.
Eno knows. Eno remembers.
Oh yeah. but starting to kind of like bucket that out by kinematics and motion capture typing. Like that's something that we wanted to get into. I mean, slot is the easiest one to kind of...
Right, that's the first thing I was thinking of. But then, not all slots are clearly equal because there's also the difference between hand slot and arm slot.
And the way that the arm deploys, like you can be very elbow extension dominant, more it's internal like rotation.
Like this. Or
yeah, like if you lead with your elbow a lot and then it, deploys maybe like high efficiency.
We found
axis stuff.
Elbow extension velocity was actually related to spin efficiency.
This elbow extension velocity is the velocity at which you
so it's this
people that people that tricep extend more than internally rotate basically
had more spin efficiency.
So it was like there was I'm pretty sure, I can't remember exactly,
I always thought
spin efficiency was a
slot.
I think I think it's partially from slot, I think, but it's also about how you get there. And I forget the exact relationship.
Probably controlled first slot.
I could almost physically understand it.
Yeah. I forget what's
coming around the ball a little bit like this. Where it's like if you have
if you lead with the elbow and then
you're cutting it less. Probably.
It's like there was an increase in spin rate or something, but the spin efficiency was
that makes your plan so much better right there, right? Like something small like that helps you kind of separate plans. Where you're like, okay, well, I don't think we're gonna change your elbow extension velocity.
Right.
So you're in the high group, so you're a high spin efficiency guy most likely. So these are the types of pitches that we can go for. And you're a little bit more low, so we're gonna do sweepers. We're gonna try to do sweeper with you and this and that. You're high, so we're gonna try to do like a real 12-6 or whatever. Yeah. Am I off base?
No, 100%.
I think it might be opposite. I think it might be opposite where faster extension leads to less efficiency. So it causes you to get around it more.
Okay.
But yeah, the same thing applies.
Idea.
It's just like opposite.
The other one that's like pretty big is like trunk positioning, because like obviously that's going to dictate
like how much of a lean you got. Like,
like if you're over there, like side armors typically more upright to hunched over. That's going to affect that, because I mean that was one of the earlier things. Just even trying to optimize for velocity when looking at only the kinematics, there's so many different like positions that people more effectively rotate in. Like one athlete can just rotate better from like a slightly tilted position, whereas someone else needs to like arch back, like the old like Tim Lincecum, obviously one of the better examples of like extreme torso positions and being able to rotate from them. You can't ask like Kyle Muller to rotate from the same position. So, and that's going to have implications on slot and
more
and
effective
everything.
buckets, like more effective plans.
Yeah.
You still, but that's where I see the difference in hitting. It almost still feels like 1-to-1. Like we don't have that. It's hard to make buckets.
In hitting?
Wrong. Yeah.
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 So either you believe that there's like top line takeaways where every hitter should do this.
I think it's just early.
Or you look at every single hitter as a unicorn and try to analyze them. Whereas in pitching, we've come to the point where like, no, there are optimal strategies, but there isn't just one.
Right.
There are buckets, and we're getting better at defining these buckets.
Well, I think hitting is also behind. Just
that's what I think too,
people don't agree even yet on the optimal strategy, right? Like everyone, I mean,
they don't even agree on the optimal outputs.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like there are people saying that bat speed doesn't matter, and I'm like, are you insane?
Yeah. They're in the same fight we were in 2015 with like 16 about
velocity or weighted balls. Yep. I mean, that is, I'm sorry. It's got to be frustrating because it's so obvious.
Right. 100%.
It's so obvious that bat speed is everything. It's like almost everything.
If you try to just like think through the counter argument, it's just like, okay,
it makes sense.
So I don't want to hit the ball harder.
So we know that exit velocity is great. We know barrels are great. Let's optimize for it. How do we do that?
100%.
Bat speed.
Yeah. It makes intuitive sense, but I think velocity did too,
Yeah.
Like even at the base level of having less time to make a decision. It's like even if that's the only reason velocity matters, like that makes sense.
And I think one baseline thing that I feel like any kind of argument or dispute I or someone else gets into on pitch speed or bat speed, it's just like, oh yeah, but if they throw as hard as they can possibly throw or swing as hard as they could possibly swing, they're like out of control, their body's out of control. Like,
yeah,
okay, great. Like, you still move that ceiling, what your
you hold
maximum
that
ceiling is,
constant.
and then you just, like,
And then step back
if your
up.
optimal performance is like you throwing 95% as possible, as hard as you possibly can. 95% of 100 is 95.
Yeah.
95% of 90 is much less. You know what I mean? It's just like,
keep
that's
the other
common
factor
thing,
constant. Like hold the bat to ball speed
Learn-
the same or command.
And learn from pitching. Like, you have your max velo.
Yeah.
And then you step off of that 2 miles an hour to sit for the game if you're a starter or whatever, right? And for hitting, it would be probably the same thing where you have your max bat speed where, maybe you're flailing, maybe it's kind of crazy, but then you step off that and you're still further along.
Yeah.
Has that been analyzed with like, have we quantitatively proven that if you
location goes down on
no,
max
like
velo?
yeah, so like if people who are
Speed
sitting
accuracy trade-off.
like if their average is farther from their max or median is farther than their max, like their command
I
or
can do that with my model.
is their longevity better?
All
Like,
I have to
do
do
they
is
stay in
look
the
at top 2% velo and look at location plus and top 2% velo for pitchers as opposed to
See if there's like a drop or anything.
yeah.
I think we've done some stuff too. I think myself and
Anecdotally,
Dan,
you'd think there would
I put out some like on the bat speed stuff. I think people's batted ball outcomes tend to peak around like 90 to 92% of your max bat speed.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you had a little bit of
yeah.
something with the
Yeah.
smash factor.
Yeah,
Like there
yeah.
was another
Yeah.
factor, I think.
Yeah. Well, so we've been optimizing stuff around like basically bat speed, bat to ball contact, and swing decisions.
Yeah.
So those are like our big three in hitting now.
And bat to ball contact and smash factor had some sort of relationship.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, I think that stuff's a no brainer. But also, like the more like people preach on about it too, it's just like it's just a whiplash factor. Like people that are just want to believe the other argument, they just get more set in their ways. The more
I don't think that's. I think
Digging their heels in.
Dudo made this point the other day that you're just not going to be able to escape it anymore with Hawkeye and everything. Like the information out there is about to be so readily available to the same extent that it is on pitching. I mean, on pitching right now, you get the velocity of every pitch when you're watching the broadcast. That wasn't always the case. And then I think the same thing is going to start to show up more and more on hitting.
Yeah, if they do like a
Evie's been
Mike
like
Petriello nerdcast,
and
he's talking about the bat speed on these guys, and wow, the light should go on. Like all the guys who hit the ball really hard have really high bat speed.
It's just becoming more and more common for the like home run graphic to pop up and show the exit velocity, and then like bat speed is also going to start to show up as well
because Hawkeye can do that.
Yeah. We're just going to know that.
How does Hawkeye fit into your like story and how you're telling it?
I will talk about how I think that there's a kind of an anecdote about Hawkeye that kind of describes the current state of biomechanics in baseball, which is that there's the prepared Hawkeye field, like the kind of like what BAM gives you. Mm-hmm. Like there's like the kind of spoon-fed Hawkeye, and about 20 teams use that. And then there's the full Hawkeye with the kind of pose estimation, all the biomechanics, the kind of full feed.
Yeah.
And it's probably about 10 teams that are so. The other 20 teams know about it, and some portion of those 20 teams already had systems in place. They just don't want to do the Hawkeye one, because they already spent so much money on Kinetracks or stuff like that. So I would say probably half of the teams in baseball are fully engrossed in biomechanical research and are doing it and have canvas data and have findings, personal findings, and of those 15,
or they're just recording a lot of data.
So of those 15, 5 are recording data and have no idea what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
Which still fine, still better not recording it.
5 have some takeaways and are bad at implementing them. And then 5 have good takeaways and are good at implementing them.
And they're just running away.
And those teams are the ones that are that are the best in baseball and R&D. Like when you're talking about Astros, Yankees, Dodgers.
1,000%.
So
I was about to ask how was your guys' because you're on the World Pitching Congress too. So what do you think of Brady's talk? And you can be honest. This guy takes critical feedback really well. And B, how was your talk?
Knows.
You put me on the spot. I haven't seen it yet.
That's fine.
It was on a weekend thing. I was out traipsing, but the videos just came out.
I know, yeah.
And I'm gonna see it. I'm definitely gonna see it. Just got the video. I'm gonna see it.
It's pretty good.
But it was fun. Yeah, what I did was talk about what's not in Stuff Plus and what can be, and it was mostly what we just talked about in terms of like using biomechanical data to improve Stuff Plus.
Yeah,
because out those things.
You know, when people try to come up with all sorts of other stuff, and you're like, no, that's in Stuff Plus. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, you know, one thing that I did have that I could maybe do is spin interaction. That's not necessarily biomechanical.
Different pitch types.
Yeah, and there's been some kind of smoke, but not fire in terms of like spin mirroring. And I've found some really sort of base level effects, but nothing big.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably because I think it's natural to spin mirror, because I think your slot determines a lot of your spin axis.
Yeah.
So your four seam is going to naturally kind of mirror your curveball because your slot is probably similar for both, right?
That's what I was thinking with the way, even just not even just like slot where it is in space, but the arm deployment stuff that we were talking about. Like if you're more elbow extension dominant, I think typically going to have like that up and down fastball and then 12-6 breaker.
Right.
Whereas if you unwind with a lot more internal rotation, maybe that's more of the
side to side stuff.
Yeah, side to side.
Yeah.
Sweeper sinker.
And that could be even independent of slot.
100%. Yeah.
But spin interaction, I guess, you know, I was told from my modeler that there was something about either our model or maybe even computing power that would make it difficult. Because you're now asking, are you asking like spin interaction off the last pitch, or are you defining an arsenal? I would do it the easy way first, which is define an arsenal and then just have, this is his spin on his four seam, and then just like I have vertical movement differential in Stuff Plus where it's like this is, it drops this much further off of it. Then why not just have a spin interaction differential? Where it's like, you know, this is the spin axis on
those are probably be pretty collinear though. I mean, not saying there's not use there, but
yes, because
vertical movement, the more you spin
that
it,
determines the vertical
rise,
movement and the horizontal movement.
I think it'd be really interesting one of the pretty complex things there that I think would be really interesting if we could kind of split up total spin and like backspin, side spin, rifle spin, or gyro spin. And I mean, there's different types of gyro spin too, like ones that like kind of change throughout the flight of the pitch sometimes.
Late movement.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. But as of now, most of that's got to come off Rapsodo metrics or pitch logic metrics. I don't know if have you played around much of pitch logic or heard much about them? Pitch logic is pretty cool.
They have more component spin.
So the sensors in the ball and it's really cheap. Compared to like, you know, Rapsodo, TrackMan, everything else. And yeah, they do like the three spin split.
Information is in the ball.
Yeah. So we have,
it's an IMU. It's not like an optical base. It's like directly measuring it.
So we just partnered with them. We have them and track, and we're doing. I've been working on with a guy in my department, Michael Capobianco. I've been working on like the analytics from Pitch Logic, and it's pretty fun because like there's like not that many like data viz things out there by pitch type, by different like, you know, a spin split. So it's pretty fun. We're doing like, you know, kind of like stacked bar graphs with like rifle spin is negative on the visual, and then we're like imposing that across arm slots. I think it's gonna look pretty snazzy.
If you get that, then do some batted ball spin and research too.
That's the thing. I mean, but it's just so tough to pair up all the. I mean, which is part of the appeal what we have in the lab, like pairing up technologies. But like, batted ball spin out of the common technologies it's mostly on. I mean, Rapsodo has it. TrackMan has it now.
I think Hawkeye has it, but it's not being released.
Yeah. That's another fucking rant.
You were talking about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you were talking about the like next frontier of biomechanics, and you were doing a story on that. Do you think biomechanics is the next like thing for teams and people to like tackle and master, and that's the like biggest?
Well, I think we're in the phase of like, get me a biomechanic.
Yeah,
you know, like it's probably like there was probably like a phase of like, get me a driveline guy, you know, like get me
a pitch design.
Yeah, get me a pitch design.
Give me a rep.
And then, you know, you got to filter through the good ones and the bad ones, and then you know which teams are actually into the process and devoted to it, and which ones are just like, we've got a biomechanic. His name's Joe.
Yeah.
And, you know, and like, so I think that we're in the process of it. But Hawkeye is going to lead to an explosion.
Yeah.
Because it's there, and at some point, you know. And it is related to Petriello and the Nerdcast and what BAM does, because they're going to do more and more of the skeletons, you know, and they're going to start saying some stuff in their articles about it, and you know, then you know, coaches are going to be like, you know, or people that run teams are going to be like, I read on MLB.com today, like, what are we doing about this, you know? So
the popularization of biomechanics is definitely here. I'm pretty worried, and I've mentioned it before. Biomechanics is just so nuanced, and there's so many limitations around certain things. It's really hard to communicate those because it's like really complex.
That's the second level. That's where the second level effects come in.
Yeah, and it's just like a lot of people trying to take insights and stuff from the technology and not understand the nuances. I mean, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, because what they're going to want to do is get the inverted W takeaway, right?
Right.
Where they're going to be like, just tell me what's bad, okay? And we'll avoid what's bad.
If I do this, am I going to get hurt?
Yeah, that's what they're going to want. And then also, when you do have the sort of get me a biomechanic approach, you aren't thinking about the background. Biomechanics is now a major, so you're going to have people that are experts in biomechanics and have no idea about baseball. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I think what we're starting to have are more this sort of second order people that are learning biomechanics through baseball. Yeah. You know, and have both subject matter expertise and the larger expertise. Yeah. And that's going to be really important because of the pressure from old school baseball and coaches and higher ups is going to be dumb it down, give it to me as easy as possible, give me the mottos, give me the takeaways. Right. And somebody that comes up from a baseball background will know that and will have that minefield, but will know it's there to start. Yeah. And we'll be able to, and either we have to create a second layer of people that talk to the, because we've done that with analytics where we have people that are liaisons. Interface people where I can talk to the bio and I can make you those mottos and coach you through the probabilistic thinking.
I think it's a really good point. Like one of the things we run into all the time. Obviously, we put out like R&D internships and applications for people to apply to, but it is really tough without any domain knowledge. Like I don't know if it's like I don't know if every sport like says this or is kind of in a bubble and like. I mean, you can come in to be clear, you can come into Driveline R&D and be effective if you have no domain knowledge, but you will have like, you're going to kind of be a learning curve. You're going to be like funneled into a specific box. Like you have to, all the ideas have to be generated from somewhere else. Right. And baseball is so nuanced, so complex. Not like baseball. Yeah. Just sports in general, but like half the surface level models or research that people put out when they kind of just start playing around with stuff and throw everything in a blender, like you could just be like, oh, did you control for count? Just like something really basic, and then that'll like submarine like not even
that. Like I think the sneakiest dynamic that most people don't know about that you kind of touched on is like almost I'd say the vast majority of papers out there on pitching biomechanics, within the first few sentences of the intro paragraph, they're talking about like the epidemic of Tommy John and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so immediately all of the research is like prefaced around injury prevention and injury risk and like modeling against reducing like those various moments, valgus torques, all that.
I know how to reduce valgus torque. Don't throw hard.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like, and we've even had, people we've talked to fresh out of academia, they're just so used to, this is how I do a research study in baseball. I don't write a paper that's like, hey, these are really good for velocity. There are some out there and they're like really good, but it's almost like, effects of certain pitching mechanics on velocity and stress. They're just so focused on that other component where if you come in, you don't have the domain knowledge of baseball or the understanding of like, how hard it is to generate velocity, and also that it can even be trained. The context. If you just
and also that it's a requirement. Yeah, like you can't be a pro and throw 75.
Yeah, if you just come in and you're like, well, my job as a biomechanist is to make sure this guy doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that his biomechanics and the way he moves optimizes for not getting Tommy John. Well, that guy's just going to throw 85.
A bunch of those papers also have like people that don't throw it hard.
Yeah.
Like all the time, like these studies, you know, they're not even
just
like
not a relevant study.
Yeah, right. Like it's just like I think that's one of our big advantages too when we do investigations in gym.
Guys coming through. You got pros coming through.
We're actually doing it on people that are like playing meaningful baseball and optimizing, trying to optimize performance and health.
Yeah, and you have elite populations, right?
Yeah.
Because if you start to do the whole population, then you're starting to talk about like what would happen if Eno threw 95. Yeah, my arm would just fall like fly.
Because you're not ready for it.
Yeah, right.
You haven't experienced. That's the other thing.
But you're also, if I was in your study, I would be a terrible data point for your study.
Yeah.
It would be of no use to your study. I think. Yes, I have a human body, but does it have anything to do with Lars Nootbaar or Shohei Ohtani?
I was about to take myself out of studies when I
I think it fails both populations too. It doesn't just fail the like population of an elite athlete, a pro who's trying to like get to the next level, but it also fails like the young guys who like parents and people who are trying
they still want to throw 95.
Yeah, they still want to be a professional baseball
Even if you
player,
told them, not to throw 95, they'd still want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. We like end up training like younger people who want to have a future
to fail.
in the game exactly, to fail in the actual games just so that they can not experience
there's a group out there that's very vociferous on Twitter, very loud about how none of their athletes get hurt, and I'm always like, and how hard do they throw? How many you got in the majors?
That's kind of like a taboo thought experiment in that space that I really like, and is if you have an athlete that is underperforming velocity wise, but let's be honest, they have like a very short window, to maybe get to the next level that they want to, or even just get playing time at their current level, how much like risk aversion are you going to, do in that situation when you give them a program? Like, we know that if we put you in these positions, yes, it's going to be more stressful.
Like, you will be better for the next 3 years and maybe hurt for a year after that.
And how many athletes
would you
take
the
that?
shot?
I think we've done that in baseball, and I think that the humans involved have all been like, no, fine, sign me up.
Exactly.
I need to get to the big leagues.
We were talking about
Give
that
me
with
2 years in the big leagues and 1 year on the IL. I'll do it.
Yeah, I've never, I like can't imagine anyone who I've played with or talked with who like, if you sat down and you had the athlete meeting with them and you're like, hey, look, here's the deal.
We can keep you healthy for 15 years.
You're throwing 90 to 92 and we can keep you right there. And you're not like, we feel confident you're not going to get hurt, but also you're not going to get any better. You're not going to get out of A-ball.
You're
like,
not going to get better,
right? But we can try this like pretty intense velocity program, put you in these positions. Your stress is going to go up.
Torque is going to go up.
It's going to go up, but like, if you make it out the other side, you might also,
be a big leaguer,
get a few years there. It's like, where do you kind of draw? I think in general, if you come from that academia and clinical background, it's really hard to see the perspective from the athlete's end of like how willing they actually are to go through something like that, instead of just like, oh no, I'd much rather just stay healthy.
Yeah.
But like, for why? Like, why do you want to,
And like, not to force a segue on us, but I think this is why in the lockout, in the discussion right now in Major League Baseball, the most important thing to the players should be minimum salary.
Oh yeah.
Because the average player plays 3 years and is out.
Yeah.
And the average player gets, no money for the minor league portion of their career, and let's say you weren't a big bonus baby. Now you're losing money through your minor league portion because you got to train, to make the big leagues. So you lose money. So now you're talking about 3 years in the big leagues, probably 6 to 7 years training. You're losing money on the 4 years. You come out 7 years later with $1.5 million off the $500,000 minimum right now, right? Mm-hmm. But that's really $700,000 after taxes, $750,000, $800,000 after taxes. That's $800,000 for 7 years. Some people say, "Oh, that's great," but that's only the people that make it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think,
And then what do you do after?
and then you're 30 and
Yeah.
you might be done.
Yeah.
And you have to either relearn a new thing or hopefully you were listening to your coaches along the way. Maybe you can turn into a good coach. But my point is that not only do we need to reward those guys, there's 60% of the big leagues right now is on, in pre-arbitration. So on some form of the minimum. So, if you gave any analyst in baseball the choice between, a $500,000 player and a, $25 million player.
Yeah.
Or mostly it's, I'll take the one $25 million player and a bunch of 500,000 players. That's the ideal team from the analyst standpoint, right?
That's interesting.
So you're only going to get more and more on the minimum salary. So it's that math is only going to get worse and worse. And then the last thing is, I think that if you had like a $1 million minimum salary, you would actually start to get some middle class veteran signings, because the way that you manage risk right now is you say, okay, do I want to sign Todd Frazier for $2.5 million, $3 million to be my DH or whatever, or am I going to give these three $500,000 kids a chance and see which one of them can make it?
Yeah.
Now you say the three $500,000 kids, right? You spend $600,000, you get one, it works out,
Right.
But what if it's $3 million kids?
You raise
That's
that kind of
so
floor.
interesting. I had never thought about it.
Now all of
like
a sudden you're like, hey, let me go sign Jed Lowry. Let me
Yeah.
go sign Todd Frazier.
Nice.
It's all about that. Like, this guy's projectable. There's a floor. I understand it.
Yeah.
These guys have ceiling, but if they're $1 million a pop, then maybe I'll take the
Yeah.
floor. So I think it would create a little bit of more of a middle class. And just the fact that 60% of the big leagues is on the minimum salary, that's enough for me to say, like, that's the most important issue there. That's the most
Is it
important
the issue they can't get through right now?
Right now, the gap is, and I would have asked for more than the union did. Baseball reportedly is offering a raise to like 600,000. They're at it's like 504 to like 600,000. However, that's not even an inflation raise.
Yeah, especially with
Since the last CBA.
When was that? When was the last CBA?
15.
15.
Also, revenues in baseball in 15 have, I think it's gone from 7 billion to 11 billion. So that's beyond inflation, right? So that's more than your sort of 3 to 5, whatever your inflation raises. So really, the rise in the minimum salary should mimic that 7 to 11.
7 to 11 is a lot better than 5 to 6.
It should really be like a 30% increase, which you're talking about like 750, 800, 900,000. The unions offer is like 675 to 775, like it's like kind of a range, first year, second year, third year kind of deal. To me, like from the outside, I'm like, well, first of all, the union should have asked for more to find a better middle ground. To me, the middle ground should be like 700,
where they're starting at.
And the union started too close to that for some reason. But then the owners are like, no, that's absolutely, this is crazy. You're insane. You people are insane.
Yeah.
And we're gonna call in today. They called in the federal government.
We
need mediators. These people are
help.
insane. They are asking for
negotiating with crazy people.
They were asking for an inflation, like a cost of living increase. These people are insane.
Nuts. In this economy? Are you kidding?
Every single like owner player split, regardless of the sport, like the owners are always like profiting way more until there's a lockout or until like something happens, and it's just gonna keep like going that way because like,
it's starting to get pretty
revenue.
it's getting dangerous, right? Because pitcher
it's
catcher
not-
report date's
it's not
supposed to be in
starting
2 weeks.
I think we were talking about this on my podcast. Like, I think you need 2 weeks after the agreement is signed,
right?
because you need to give there need to be signings. Carlos Rodon is not signed. You need to give some time for signings. Then you have people living in Seattle that their team trains in Arizona. They got to move. They got to get a house. So I think 2 weeks from the day that they have a tentative agreement.
Even then,
that close.
That is still so tough.
I think the earliest spring training starts is like March 14th or something, like halfway through March.
I wonder if you'll have players that will, if something does get thrown together, there are players that are just like, I'm not going to be ready by then, or something. Because from their end, it's got to be so hard right now. No, we've been dealing with it in gym.
How do you train as a pitcher? Because
exactly,
it's almost like COVID again.
Yeah,
where you just like you
Pulse,
don't know. All pitching is this is my first start is going to be.
Yeah,
my first start is going to be April.
You always
2nd,
back schedule.
So that I have to throw 4 innings on March this, and I have to throw 3 to 2 innings on this day, and like there's all a progression, right? But if you don't
100%.
have that end date,
You're
just gonna sit at like 30 pitches, and just keep sitting there and just keep doing bullpens every 3, 4 to 5 days at 30 pitches.
Or do you do another like velocity program? Try to fit one in before it comes back.
Yeah, right.
Peaks in spring training.
It definitely makes it harder for the people who really are trying to take advantage of the time, right? Because if you're just trying to maintain, trying to get back to last year's performance, you can be like, okay, I'm just gonna be ready. Like I'm gonna be ready for the first start. I'm gonna like assume that I'm throwing. I'm gonna throw like I'm throwing in the game in spring training, and it's just like it was last year and the year before and everything. But then somebody who like wants to take advantage of it because they need like an extra tick or two, whatever.
Yeah, we'll be on that velocity program like even later. We'll just keep doing it. Yeah.
Do you think it was harder or easier than last year? Because last year I kind of forget, but like we didn't have a start date for a while when people were trying to figure out like COVID shortened season, or sorry, not last year before
2020. It's more like 20. I think it's more like 20.
Yeah. 2020 was
and there was a record number of injuries.
Yeah.
But
I'm saying I think like normalizing off season training is like gonna be huge, just because like I mean obviously you've got to kind of like fit in your cycles and how you program, but the idea of just being able to take off like months off, I think is going to become increasingly crazier and crazier.
Right. So that's the other story I'm writing, which is, and I'm writing a lot of these with Britt. So hopefully Britt's not getting mad at me that I'm telling what we're working on. But one is that people don't stop throwing anymore.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. I think one of the craziest things right now is that the pitcher catcher report date hasn't really changed. Maybe it has, I just don't know. But like, it seems so weird that it's always in that mid-February area going into spring training, when you have guys nowadays, they throw all off season. And we're still in this like...
And I think most of us would like spring training to be shorter. So I think the pitchers could show up later because they've been throwing all off season.
Yeah, if they're in shape,
if you could tell them, we expect you to show up and be able to throw a one major league inning on March 1.
Yeah.
Oh man, do I have a product for you? Do you think that
you're wearing a Moda shirt, bro? That hurts our rebranding, dude. That hurts our rebranding.
Do you think that, pulse aside, do you think that because I haven't heard a bunch about it outside of using Moda's Pulse, like do you think that people are going to normalize using quantitative measures to onboard for the season?
Well, I mean, you're gonna have to do something. You're talking about like, you reported, and we need to now figure out, because it's also, they weren't allowed to talk to each other. So you're talking about like, how do we onboard all these pitchers and find out where they are without just asking them and then taking their word for it?
Yeah.
So I think the smart teams are going to be like, the way we do that is it's all assessment. Like we make them throw on the modus, and we on the, what's it called, Pulse. Make them throw on the pulse.
Driveline Pulse, baby.
Driveline Pulse. We make them throw on that. I do wonder how that's going, because the better teams also have, like, you have, what's the other, tracks?
Track.
Yeah.
That's a system where
you have all the info,
all the info there,
everything recorded,
and like the coach can log in.
That was big for COVID.
Yeah.
Coach can log in and give you plans
and just see what's
remotely.
going on. Exactly.
But that's not allowed right now. But are players like populating it still?
Yeah, is the data going in? I don't know.
If the data is going, like, I think the best case scenario is right before the lockout, you tell everybody, just
hit refresh.
Just put
hit upload now.
You see the same thing with college.
Whatever you do, put it in.
You see the same thing with college too,
then
right?
you could, when things come online, you can be like,
screenshot.
oh wow, I can at least see what they've been doing.
Yeah, for sure.
You did do the homework.
The NCAA has all these crazy rules too, with like coach contact with the players too.
And
if you just and like in the fall and everything, it's like if you
just do everything in the system.
Yeah, just do that. Yeah, just measure this thing, and then I can see what you're doing, and then you can Coach yourself.
As soon as I'm allowed to talk to you, I will stop doing that.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, but the general idea between not stopping throwing anymore is partially linked to what you were saying about like you only have a limited time to make it. Like if you're not getting better, you're
plateauing or regressing,
falling behind, and you're not gonna like everyone's trying to get better. You can't just sit on your laurels. So, and then also I think because of things like track, we're better at monitoring fatigue, acute to chronic ratio, and like having a better idea of which of these throws, because like off-season throwing is probably not adding to your injury risk that much. Like you're talking a lot of times about like 30, 50, 60% throwing. And,
I think a good argument to be made that it helps.
Yeah.
Because you're built in the acute to chronic setup, you're setting up the chronic. You're setting up a nice baseline. You're keeping that baseline high, so that you can have these acute moments.
There's basic science research to suggest that there's like material changes in your like arm tissue that happen in the off season and happen during the season that like maybe if there's if you go without throwing or without working out like you do in that regular season throughout the off season, you come back, you're like the tissue in your arm is like literally not ready.
I'm doing like much like kind of a running program, and like I have my 5 miles on Monday, 10 miles on Wednesday, sprint intervals on Fridays. If I skip a day, especially if I skip a Friday, which sometimes I skip Friday, on Monday I'm like, wow, I'm like 2 weeks behind.
I was about to ask you about running, by the way, because I don't know if you heard, Kyle and I did a half marathon this last summer.
Nice.
And we're probably going to try to do another one. So, if you're interested.
I want to do an official one. Last year, I ran 13, and my goal is this year to do an official one. I have not done an official one.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, I mean,
I did the stretch in one run, but I think I'm totally capable, but I need a good one. Is Seattle a good one?
There's a pretty good one.
There's a really good one that we did. It's like, it's all downhill.
Nice.
The entire thing is downhill.
Nice.
Love that. Yeah. I'm into it. I want to do an easy one first. I don't want to do the hardest one first.
Sure.
Hawaii is like, hot as hell, and you go, it's like up the mountain.
People fly to Seattle to do this one, so they can qualify for the Boston Marathon.
My family wants to come to Seattle too. I'll come to Seattle.
Let's go.
We'll go to a game at Safeco, and I'll run the half marathon.
T-Mobile, bro.
No, well, I was gonna say.
I hate that crap.
2 points on what you said. Yeah, I think it's crazy to think about it in terms of any other like performance or sport. Like, if you're a competitive lifter, like sure you have like times in the year where you kind of ramp it up,
it's
but
the
like,
off season.
you would never take
2
or 3 months off. Can you imagine like a world class like power lifter? Like I have a bench competition in July. I'm probably just not gonna bench from November to
I don't have to
March.
report for 4 months.
Or like a sprinter or a runner, like just not gonna run for 3 months. Like what?
There's the extreme on the other side where it's like Bryson DeChambeau. I think he talks about like if I'm expected to run 10 miles today, like I should be able to run 10 miles today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day, the next day.
Yeah.
So he almost doesn't want, he has a totally different feeling about like recovery, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm that far extreme. I think what I one thing I saw that I was talking to Comstock.
Yeah.
About big ass.
Yeah. About a big ass. Thought there was gonna be another word after that. That's not what I noticed about him, but he was kind of. I was asking why people were hopping around in the weight room, and he was like, "Well, Thursdays typically, we have the heavy lift days and heavy throw days." And Thursday's kind of typically a light day. We want to keep them moving, and we want to kind of keep all those muscles activated and loose. And so these are kind of these light plyometric days, where they're doing things that look silly, but they're trying to just keep everything active without taxing them in a way that would cause a need for recovery the next day, because this is kind of the recovery day.
Exactly.
So that's yoga for me. Like on Thursdays, I do yoga where, I had my long run the day before. I want to do something that sort of activates all those muscles and keeps me limber, but I'm not going I'm pretty sore. So.
I saw you did like 500 miles or what was the
750 last year.
750 last year.
I don't know.
Did you do 500 2020?
500 the year before, and the year before that, all the miles I'd ever run in my life put together probably amount to about 50.
Really?
Yeah. Are you trying to? You're 1,000 this year?
I don't know.
I mean, just log a real half marathon. That can
That's
be
the main goal
yeah.
is a real half marathon with a bib.
Yeah.
I do want to go more than 750, but it's kind of tough, man.
No,
it's,
that's a lot. It's a lot.
So
the
how do you split
difference
it up?
between me, like I said, I run 5 on Monday
Okay.
and like 10 on Wednesdays, and then I do 4 with interval sprints on Friday.
Yeah.
If I want to do 1,000, I think I have to start running on weekends, and then I have to start doing something that doesn't have a weekday component to it, where I'm like just running every other day, all the way through. And then I think I have like 3 books on running. I have to read them.
Read them while running.
It's just like
Get more invested.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm in a pretty good spot. I like it. I'm not going to be a professional runner, so it's like, I want to do it so I can drink beers and and enjoy the outside and get off the screens for a while.
Yeah.
And
I remember seeing your tweet about it, and I was doing the math because I was in the middle of my marathon training, and I was like, 750 is a lot. Like, even if I was doing my marathon training at the time, like even all of my marathon training was only something over 300 or something like that.
Oh, for the year?
Yeah, no, well, it was over like 4 months or whatever.
Okay, so
I would have had to maintain that like training program for a very long time. It's like, that is a lot, dude. That's impressive.
I was about to say, do you have an idea of how many miles you ran?
I think it was between 300 and 400.
But I'm saying for the year.
Oh no.
No? Yeah.
I mean, it was probably right around there because
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe like 500.
Before the half marathon we did, I sent this guy, I FaceTimed this guy at like 8 or 9 p.m. I was going to a concert with a couple of friends, and I only had like a couple of shots, but we were passing around a mason jar of vodka in the back, and I FaceTimed him because we were running the half marathon. He was picking me up at like 5 a.m., maybe like 4:30.
the next day.
Yeah. But it's 8 p.m. So I was just messing with Lindley. I was like,
About to
dude, I'm a little bit
vodka.
drunk, not gonna lie, need you to pick me up.
And he not the way to go into a marathon, I don't think.
And he almost didn't pick
All that
me up.
lactic acid.
I only had a couple, but he almost didn't pick me up because he thought I was gonna be too drunk.
And then he texted me at like midnight and was like, "Yo, can you pick me up at this other address?" I'm like, "Dude, you didn't even fucking go home." Like, how much? And he was like,
God,
"You're gonna get 5 hours of sleep."
I love it.
And I was like, I might just not pick him up because I'm worried about his health.
Wasn't it super hot too?
Yeah, it was.
They had all these warnings. They're like, listen. Well, yeah, it was a pretty fucked half marathon because like the slower you run, the more likely it is that you're gonna get hit by the heat.
Yeah.
So we were running against nature too.
It's in the morning, and
They moved it up like the week of. They moved it up start time from like 8 a.m. to 7 a.m. or something.
It was that crazy stretch where we had like broke every Seattle.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
111 here.
Oh yeah,
no
111.
AC.
I saw that.
Yeah,
And nobody had
insane.
AC up here.
Oh, dude, it was
Insane.
insane.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
We had baseball games going on at the time. I remember.
Oh,
just
yeah.
hell.
Yeah, that was the same day. Yeah, he had a
that's
baseball
right.
game. We
And it was
literally had
up against the like fire season went too far after that. So
Yeah, it
like,
was really bad.
It was like 111, and then there was like fires everywhere.
It was so bad.
that was
just like-
that was a tough time.
Yeah.
Oh, but anyways, I want to hear about that Berry Bond juice. You were almost done.
So I'm gonna frame this in my life just because I'm a paranoid person. But right before I became a member of the BBWAA, I wrote a sort of impassioned like Barry Bond's the Hall of Famer, y'all. Like, shut up. And I tried to like come at it from like 3 different angles and being like, he was before he ever got on the juice. He was, and I also kind of attacked like the sort of idea that I didn't really have a testing program in place. So like, he never really broke a rule that was enforced, so I tried to like get at it from a lot of different angles. I got
What year was this?
Huh?
What year was this?
So I'm probably writing this in like 2010.
Okay.
Is there any risk with that? Like, if you came in and you were writing this piece, like, is there any risk that they would be like, "Oh no, man, I don't know about you being in the."
I mean, a reader told me to go kill myself. But,
Oh my god.
but no. It. See, this is why it breaks down. I'm not that important, And it doesn't matter that I wrote that piece, and I'm a writer, and
That's
what mattered
2010,
more.
dude. Now you drop it.
Well, it mattered
People are
more
mad.
that I was working for an at BBWA accredited place, the Fangraphs, and that I made my living writing baseball. Those are the two biggest things. However, right after that, I joined the BBWA, and I get the Hall of Fame vote next year. Right at the beginning of joining the BBWA, they announced that Barry Bonds would no longer, or not Barry Bonds, but that players would no longer be allowed to be on the ballot for 15 years.
Oh, so that's a recent thing? I thought that was
that happened. No, that was changed in like 2012 or something, like right around the time that I joined the BBWA. And so I'm in year 10, you get your Hall of Fame vote, and Barry Bonds drops off the year before. He drops off. He's not on anymore. I get to vote next year. That's just personal paranoia, but how it fits into the larger story is that Jason Stark looked at this recently, and he found that new voters were dramatically voting for Barry Bonds. And that literally, if he'd given the next 5 years, he would have been in.
Even shorter, right? Like it wouldn't have taken many.
I mean, he was so close.
He wouldn't have ran it up.
There's almost no. I think there's never been any other. Him and Roger Clemens, the only people who've ever hit like 70+% and not been voted in.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Jay Jaffe does excellent research, and he's found. I think he had a number that was like, if you hit 50%, you're in.
Yeah.
So like all the people we're looking at now that we're arguing about, like Scott Rowland or something, probably in. Because he made 60-something%, and then you get this momentum, and then you get like a bad year where there's not anybody else to vote, and people are kind of like looking around, like, oh yeah, Scott Rowland, I personally think I'm kind of more of a big Hall guy. Another thing that is problematic for us right now is that numbers-wise, we're putting fewer people, a smaller percentage of players into the Hall than we did early in baseball.
What about relative to other sports?
I don't know that analysis actually.
It's weird because I literally only pay attention to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like it's got. I mean, it's got a lot of issues with it. As evidenced by
Does
Bond.
football have as many snubs? I feel like
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. I think like it's less. People care way less about other sports, partially because they're way less.
They just care.
Also,
numbers. Baseball's a very numbers sport.
Yeah.
Or is there even like some steroid era victim similar to Barry Bonds in other sports or Roger Clemens?
Because
they
didn't have like a fully defined steroid, right? Because like there are people still doing steroids in those sports, and people did steroids before they did it in baseball, and for some reason,
it's a big deal in the NFL, not steroid thing, but the Hall of Fame's a big deal in the NFL. I know I've heard a couple interviews with the guy.
But I think mostly people get in.
Yeah.
It's like not that. It's not as controversial as it is in baseball.
I mean, there's no other sport where I can imagine where someone that arguably is the GOAT.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
It's not like he was a great guy.
Not going to get an NFL Hall of Fame.
All-time touchdown leader.
Is LeBron not going to get an NBA Hall of Fame?
It's not like an exact mapping, but it'd almost be like Ben Roethlisberger. No, you had those things that happened, with those girls. Yeah. So,
but even Big Ben's like
you don't get in.
Like somewhere between
but he's not
15th and
20th
he's not
best
quarterback.
Dude, even Tom Brady with
and he's probably still going to get in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even Tom Brady with the various things that happened in New
England.
Like people don't give up.
Nobody cares.
Nobody gives.
You imagine if
that's cheating?
Tom Brady doesn't get into the Hall of Fame, and all these riders are just
right. Can you imagine it?
Yeah.
Can you imagine it? Can you imagine I think the best baseball player that's ever played baseball is not in the Hall of Fame.
But it'd be even more absurd if everyone in the league at the time was also participating, like in Deflategate.
Right.
Like a spy scandal.
Possible.
Do you know how many people were about to get their Hall of Fame vote, or was it just you this year?
No, there's an incoming class every year, but there were definitely some other sort of Fangraphs types and baseball prospectus types that were, blogger types that were coming in with me. I wasn't the only one. So.
Yeah, it's a good amount. I remember seeing that thread about the percentages of like new voters that come in, and each year how they vote. Just like
so, the hall kept them out. They did it on purpose.
Yeah.
They also had like Joe Morgan like write a letter being like, no, you should think about steroids when you vote.
I also, I saw some tweets early on. They were reporting like 50 to 70% of the votes being in, and Clemens and Bonds were on track to get in. Did you see that?
Because the the type of voter that will go
release their vote is more likely to. Yeah.
So
except for that one crazy guy who doesn't who what's his name that he like
Doesn't
won't
vote
put anybody
anybody.
down.
Yeah.
and it's awful because it's a percentage thing, right?
Yeah.
So like if you're not interested, man, don't send that empty ballot in.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because that just makes it so much harder for everybody to hit 75%.
Yeah.
You just gave a null vote in.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Nice,
thanks.
man.
Thanks for your turd.
That's
Really-
the definition
really
of being
helpful.
self-accurate. I think just
Yeah.
like I'm so self-important. I'm gonna
Scorched earth
sink. I'm
on the whole
gonna
thing.
sink
It
people's
reminds
chances.
me of my 7-year-old flapping his penis around.
Oh yeah.
Nobody cares.
It's like, come on.
Nobody cares. Put that thing away.
He's a big leaguer.
Everyone
What
has
an
one
analogy.
What's wrong with flopping your penis around?
Do they cycle? Like, is there a retirement, or do you vote until you die?
You're supposed to see for
Term limits on
Well, I
voters.
think like
yeah.
MVP and stuff like that. You have to be an active member. You have to be going to games. Like there are certain sort of benchmarks that people talk about that aren't necessarily ensconced in the bylaws or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I think there's been some push to kind of consider it
Mhm.
because I think even that guy we're talking about, I don't think he writes regularly about baseball.
Mm.
And there are people who used to be baseball writers who are now golf editors who still
Yeah.
have Hall of Fame votes.
Mm.
And there's a sort of gold level status that you get to in the BBWA where you just have this emeritus card.
Mm.
And I'm unclear about what happens to your Hall of Vote then. I think you kind of just keep your Hall of Fame vote,
Oh, weird.
even though you might be retired.
Weird. Do you think there could be any other
But okay. One thing is though, I don't. The BBWA is a gatekeeping organization. That's the idea. The idea is that
Sole premise,
they have access. They help writers get access, and they will help them if they are writers that make their living off of baseball and are reputable in some way. So they are a gatekeeping organization, and so therefore, to just label them as gatekeeping is like, okay, that's not useful. They are gatekeeping. That's what their whole stated status is. But once you start trying to have these rules, like, oh, you can only vote for the Hall of Fame if you do this, this, or this, then you start affecting people like me because you might say, what, you need to be at the park 100 days a year. Or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, well, I'm a national writer.
I'm trying to run.
I got kids at home. I got to run. I can't be
Yeah.
at the park every day, dude.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
and I think it's kind of not like cognizant of like where baseball coverage is going, and I think not cognizant of like where labor is going because
yeah.
honestly, like I see labor, organized labor, and labor in general going towards more time off, more work-life
Remote work.
balance. Like, if you're gonna give me a crap job, you got to pay me better. Like, there's definitely movements in this across society, and I think it's part of the disagreement between owners and players right now. And so, if you say you have to work for a newspaper and you have to be at the park 100 days a year, like in 5 years there may not be a single person.
Yeah.
Just that one dude saying no to everyone.
Just the
Yeah.
one dude saying no.
He starts clocking in, going every game.
So there is that tension. You are a gatekeeping organization, but but let's keep the gates low.
Yeah, and also sensible too.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like they make fun of me in my local chapter as like, a guy who, votes for everybody to get in. And I'm like, no, man. We need more people.
Yeah.
100%.
We
do
need to
you think
open
there
the
could
door.
be a like?
Anybody who's borderline, I think, is in.
Yeah. Do you think there could be like a Pine Tar era of like Hall of Fame gatekeeping with like? Is there another
I think it's too tough.
steroid era type scandal that baseball could face? You think?
I don't think. I think it's too niche. I think people don't care
So,
enough.
I feel like the
Also,
people
too
are
hard,
all,
too hard to link like directly. Like even now, I mean, I think like anyone that's super into spin rate and pine tar probably knows what pitchers like used it, but like it'd be very, very hard to prove. I mean, also
actually, just within that example, what you're saying is like this is going to be more niche than the pine tar spin. And as the person who like did the most reporting on that, people didn't care that much.
exactly. Yeah.
People in the game cared,
Right.
but readers,
It wasn't nearly as big of a deal.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
it's
I
way
feel
less
like
visceral than like
ranked way
injecting
below
steroids
the
and
Deflategate and
we
steroids.
learned
and-
from the like everyone is since we've all gone through the experience of this like steroid era Hall of Fame gatekeeping, like there's just no way because it's so clear that everyone was doing it, and then
I think the major fallout from this will be that fewer people will care about the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Yeah,
for sure.
Don't you think?
I mean, also,
I don't know. It's still so tough because like that's just such a normal thing. Oh, he's a Hall of Famer.
I mean,
what's the next?
When I think of what really got me into baseball is 1,000% Barry Bonds. Like that is the first thing that really early baseball video games, always wanted to use Barry.
I'm a little older, but I when I went to college, I was away from baseball for a while, and then I graduated 0102, and I was at Stanford. I was like, I was going to those games, and I was like, oh, this is pretty sweet. I'm back into this.
Even Ortiz, Big Papi getting in his first year when he's literally been more technically linked to steroids.
No, it's the exact same story.
Yeah,
it's pretty much the exact same story. They
both just one of them is likable.
They both tested positive in the exploratory phase,
right?
When no one was supposed to know who tested positive.
Yeah.
Is A-Rod gonna get in, or is he in already?
No, he's not in.
He's funny because he never tested positive.
Yeah.
But he got named in the Mitchell report.
Yeah, he got named in the Mitchell report.
He got suspended for basically
and he got outed by
accepting packages.
He got outed by Canseco in his book, obviously, which is like just getting painted with a pretty tough paintbrush. I think A-Rod. I think it's a pretty good. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I think he'll probably get in.
I think he has more in common. Doesn't he have more in common with Barry and Ortiz in terms of the history and stuff, and the steroid testing and stuff, and what got him where he is, than Manny, who failed a test, or Palmeiro, who failed a test, in the testing program?
I thought A-Rod didn't A-Rod fail a test in 2013 or 2014 when he actually got suspended. I think
he accepted a package.
Yeah.
It was like a.
I think A-Rod will be a pretty interesting barometer. I would imagine he gets pushed just because I think there's gonna be. I don't know. I think the Bonds Clemens thing is gonna look even dumber from a couple years from now. And A-Rod's just a weird character. I mean, he
failed a drug test for stimulants in 2006.
But what was
he got a 211 game suspension?
Yeah. What was the deal with that? It wasn't from that. That one was 13, 14 when he was Twilight Stages. Probably still robbed him from hitting 700 homers because he only came a few away. But
I think it's mostly that he they connected the dots. He signed for packages basically.
Yeah. But
and attended certain places. It's like a Mitchell report level stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit worse than Barry but Barry and Ortiz I think have the exact same story.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one was nicer to the media and
one was just way better. Also, you know what I mean? It's just that much easier to hate on something like Bond just you're looking at it, it's okay, that dude was already really 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 fucking good, and then his performance is nobody comes close to matching it. Yeah. Whereas Ortiz, it's ironically, it's all right, he did roids and he was really good, but other people were as good as him. Nobody was as good as.
Do you think it's easier to paint Barry in a bad light because he took over the limelight from people who set records that we don't have any or we don't have the drug thing on them,
Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa?
No.
Hank Aaron wasn't Hank Aaron using some
hallowed records. Hallowed records. He has the full season and he has the full career numbers.
Yeah.
But wasn't Hank Aaron on some sort of amphetamines or something? I remember people talking about him being on greenies.
I mean, everything back then. Yeah. Everyone was doing greenies.
Something back then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I personally don't think that baseball writers are as good sleuths as they might think they are, and especially for someone who didn't play in your clubhouse, to be well, I heard, or this one player said, or his biceps got big.
Yeah,
I really felt it a little bit with Jeff Bagwell because that with Bagwell, I think mostly people
and Piazza kind of falls in that category.
Bagwell, they were well, his thighs were big.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
He was a power hitter. He was jacked, and other people were doing
Anthony
steroids.
took that personally.
Yeah. I'm clean.
I just had big thighs.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been falsely accused of steroids. At least one person made a joke about that in college.
Oh, wow. No one made that joke about me.
Yeah, same.
keep running a mile. So we'll see what happens. He's on EPO. I don't know. Eno ran 5,000 miles in 2024. He's on EPO.
Blood doping to hit your goals. It's so wild.
How long are you here for? To the weekend?
No, tomorrow, and then I'll fly on Saturday.
Fire.
Nice.
Sweet. I'm pretty sure wrap it.
Time to head to Cloudburst.
Yeah,
Let's go, baby.
Go
Thanks
get
for
some
coming
more
on.
beers.
Round 2.
Yeah, pleasure.
It's fire.
Episode 68. Thanks for coming.
69
Almost
right there.
69.
Yeah. One away.
We'll see what we do for 69.
Yeah.
Peace.